The wise man stores up treasures, but the foolish one squanders them. Proverbs 21:20. I wrote these words inspired by the Spirit of the Lord, and over the years I have watched them come to pass with precision. In every man I saw prosper with justice, and in every fool who tasted the bitterness of waste. There is something precious in this truth. The man who fears God does not see prosperity as mere chance, but as cultivation, stewardship, a seed sown with diligence. That germinates, grows, and in due time bears fruit that feeds not only his household, but also those who draw near to him. So today, I want to speak with you as one who lays out a map and points to the path of solid abundance, the kind that does not depend on luck, but on wisdom, obedience, and faithfulness in the small decisions of everyday life. Take a deep breath, silence your hurry, and listen with a heart that pays attention, because the counsel I will give you, if guarded and practiced, will turn your life into a full barn and your soul into a well-tended garden. And understand this, you will hear me speak to you here as if I were Solomon himself. Yes, the son of David, the king who asked for wisdom instead of riches and was blessed with both. I do this not out of vanity, but because in this way, the words come alive and the counsel becomes more vivid. Today we will talk about long-term vision, about saving instead of spending impulsively, about sowing with purpose and reaping with honor. We will understand what it means to store up treasures, not just coins, but wisdom, not just possessions, but relationships, not just achievements, but health, clarity, and peace, and all of this in the light of the Word. For there is no true prosperity that does not pass through the Scriptures, and no lasting wealth that does not begin with the fear of the Lord. Throughout this conversation, we will read together precious passages from the Bible. I will speak to you as if I were by your side, as I did with the men who surrounded me in Jerusalem, and who came from all corners of the world to hear me speak. We will pause to reflect, to pray, and to align our lives with the will of the Father. So let me begin by praying for you. Lord, grant understanding to this man who fears you. Deliver him from wastefulness. Form in him a heart that stores, plans, and multiplies. Give him vision for the future and diligence for the present, that he may learn to steward well, so that he never lacks bread, nor peace, nor purpose. And if at any point on this journey you realize that the wisdom I am sharing touches your spirit, if a truth awakens you and you feel you are learning something valuable for your life, do not hesitate. Leave your like as a seal of this commitment. Subscribe to the channel so you can continue walking with us. For this is how a community of wise men is formed, who grow together in the Word and build houses founded upon rock. Long-term vision. Retain, plan, store. Let's open the Bible to Proverbs chapter 21 from verse 17 to 21. There I wrote that the man who loves pleasure will become poor, and that whoever loves wine and oil will never grow rich. But in verse 20, I left a hidden secret. I said that in the house of the wise there are desirable treasures and oil, but the foolish man squanders them. I have seen with my own eyes men who, because they loved immediate pleasure, burned the future on the altar of the now. But I also saw the wise man, the one who delights in the silence of preparation, in the habit of saving, in the joy of watching his storehouses fill little by little. Let me now go back to Proverbs chapter 20, verses 13 to 15. There I teach you, do not love sleep or you will grow poor. Open your eyes and you will have your fill of bread. The lazy man closes his eyes to reality, pretends everything is fine, while wasting time and energy. But the man who fears God opens his eyes, seeks his bread with diligence, and more than that, he understands that knowledge is greater than gold. That wisdom is a jewel more rare than any visible wealth. Very well, now let's go to Proverbs chapter 22, verses 17 to 21. There I advise, incline your ear and hear the words of the wise. Apply your heart to my teaching, for it will be pleasant when you keep them within you. A wise man is one who never tires of learning, who collects advice as if they were gold coins, because he knows that trust is established when understanding is deep. And the right path is revealed to those who humbly submit to instruction. Allow me now to open Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 1 to 6. Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it. Share with 7, and even with 8, because you do not know what disaster may come upon the earth. See, the man who only watches the wind never sows. He who fears the clouds does not reap. But the man who fears God understands the time of sowing. He diversifies. He does what must be done even when the sky seems uncertain, because he knows that he who plants with wisdom will reap in abundance. Now I will open with you the book of Song of Songs, chapter 4, verses 12 to 16. There I speak of something precious, the enclosed garden. You are a locked garden, my sister, my bride, a locked spring, a sealed fountain. I spoke of relationships, of protected intimacy, of bonds that are not left to chance, but cultivated like a royal garden, with patience, presence, and care. The fragrance of true relationship doesn't come from haste, but from intentional care. And to close this reading block, I want you to listen with me to what my father David wrote in Psalm 62, verses 9 to 12. The sons of men are but a breath. If weighed on a scale, they are altogether lighter than air. Do not trust in oppression, nor take pride in stolen goods. When riches increase, do not set your heart on them. Wise man, David knew what he was saying. It is God who weighs the hearts. It is from him that justice comes, and all power to gain wealth must always be submitted to the glory of the Lord. That's why I want to show you now how the true wise accumulator thinks, and there is a lie many believe, that earning more will solve their financial problems. But what sinks you is not just what comes in. It's what slips through your fingers. It's the habit of spending thoughtlessly, of chasing status, of constantly rewarding yourself with small, empty pleasures. The man who fears God is the one who first stops the leaks. He creates small barriers against impulse. He says to himself, wait 24 hours, wait 3 days. And when the rush passes, wisdom enters. He sets aside a portion, fixes a percentage, as an act of stewardship. As one who says, this portion is seed, not food. But there are treasures that can't be seen, and these are even more valuable. The wise man accumulates knowledge. He sets aside weekly time to study, chooses a path, and stays on it. He doesn't jump from one thing to another like the unstable fool. He also gathers experience. He does the same thing with excellence until he becomes a master. And he takes care of his body, because he knows health is capital. Routine is wealth, and bonds with family, friends, with brothers in the faith. All of this is invisible investment, but it generates peace, and that peace has no price. Do you understand now why I said the fool is like a channel without a dam? Everything that comes in flows out, nothing is retained. Everything slips through the fingers like water. But the man who fears God builds cisterns. He retains, stores, sets aside portions of time, money, energy, for the days of drought. See, I teach you to schedule your savings. You can automate transfers to your emergency fund. You can block the expenses that most tempt you. You can audit the subscriptions that drain you without you noticing, because small leaks can dry even the biggest rivers. Want to know if you're maturing? Start noticing what you feel when an unexpected expense appears. If you feel peace, you're on the right path. If you can say no to expensive pleasure to say yes to what is eternal, then you're already storing what matters, and God is pleased with that. Stay with me, because now we're going to dive into even deeper principles about inheritance, prudence, and planning, and how all of this builds a strong, stable, and blessed life. Very well. Now let me continue. And I want you to listen carefully to what I wrote in Proverbs chapter 13, verses 20 to 23. Whoever walks with the wise will become increasingly wise, but the companion of fools will come to ruin. The good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. God-fearing man, listen. Your choice of companions determines your destiny. Walking with the wise is harvesting wisdom for free, but walking with the simple is harvesting losses that could have been avoided. And when I speak of inheritance, I don't just mean what's left in a will, but what's passed on through life itself, through example, through faithfulness, through the good stewardship of the land God has placed in your hands. Now turn back a few pages with me to Proverbs chapter 14 from verse 8 to 15. The prudence of the wise man is to consider his ways. He observes, weighs, reflects. But the fool believes everything he hears, follows any wind, and loses himself. Wise man, plan your steps. Don't make decisions on impulse. Don't be driven by pressure, because true security is not in speed, but in the right direction. Let me take you now to Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 13 to 18. There I told a true story about a small city that was saved by a poor but wise man, and no one remembered him afterwards. What I meant to show is that wisdom is better than strength, better than weapons of war. But it is also fragile before the shouting of fools. In other words, you can accumulate goods, but without wisdom everything can collapse. It is wisdom that sustains. It is wisdom that preserves. It is wisdom that protects a city, and a house too. Let's now go to the end of the Song of Songs, chapter 8, verses 11 and 12. There I said, Solomon had a vineyard at Baal-Hamon, and he leased the vineyard to keepers. Each one was to bring him the fruit, but my own vineyard, which is mine, is before me. God-fearing man, the vineyard represents your life, your responsibility. You may manage other people's field, but never abandon your own. Each one will give account of his own vineyard, of his house, of his gifts, of his time. And good stewardship begins with awareness. This vineyard is mine. Now let's turn to the book of Genesis, chapter 41, verses 33 to 36. The story is about Joseph, son of Jacob. When Egypt faced the famine that was coming, Joseph advised Pharaoh, choose a wise man and place him over the land, and during the years of plenty gather a fifth of everything, so that in the years of scarcity there may be supply. Joseph was promoted because of his ability to manage, and not just to interpret dreams. He understood that plenty is not an invitation to extravagance, but an opportunity to prepare for the future. That is vision. That is wisdom applied. Finally, I want you to listen with me to the words of the Lord in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 11 to 18. There God warns, be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the power to get wealth, to confirm His covenant. Listen well, wise man. Prosperity without memory is dangerous. When the table is full, when the barns are overflowing, it's easy to forget who gave the bread. That's why you must never lose reverence. Never attribute to your own arm what was a gift from God. The strength you have, the understanding you gained, the opportunity that came, all of this was grace, and it must be used to confirm the Lord's covenant. In light of all this, let me now teach you a simple yet powerful map that turns plans into real wealth. Divide your resources wisely. 10% for generosity, 10% for long-term vision, 10% for education and self-improvement, and 70% for your life. This proportion will give you balance, but it's not enough to do it once. Review every quarter, see where things are leaking, correct your course, and strengthen the foundation. Create a basic portfolio, an emergency fund, essential protections, and start putting resources into assets that bear fruit, even if small, because great trees grow from small seeds. And don't forget succession. Prepare the documents. Instruct those who will come after you. Leave a clear legacy, not just of possessions, but of values, of wisdom, of reverence for the Lord. Emotional shielding is what sustains you in the long term, because there will be days of exhaustion, there will be temptations, and on those days, it won't be motivation that keeps you firm. It will be discipline. It will be the pact you made with yourself. It will be the habit of reviewing, of being accountable, of looking into the eyes of a mentor and saying, here I am, staying the course. And how can you know that you are really leaving waste behind? Observe your routine. See if impulse purchases have decreased. If there are more days when no money was spent. Notice if your days are more productive, less scattered, more intentional. Evaluate whether your relationships are lighter, if there is more peace, if there is more alignment, because when boundaries are clear, Priorities are shared, and life flourishes now. Close your eyes for a moment. Present to God the habits of waste that still live in you. Surrender them. Confess them. Ask for wisdom to break free from them. And if you want to, write your prayer request in the comments. Put your name, your city, and the challenge you are facing, and then read someone else's request. Pray for someone, because this is how we build a community of intercessors, God-fearing men who pray for one another and share both the burden and the hope. Invest, sow today, reap tomorrow. We continue this journey together. And now, wise man, I want to speak with you about what may be one of the greatest tests of spiritual and practical maturity: to invest. To invest demands patience, it requires consistency, and it calls for faith in invisible processes. Just like a seed cast into the soil takes time to sprout, grow, and bear fruit, so too does wisdom applied to your resources require preparation, waiting, and perseverance. Let's open the word together now to Proverbs chapter 24, verse 27. There I wrote, "Put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, build your house." It's a clear instruction. First, the field, then the house. Work comes before show, stability before aesthetics, vision before vanity. The man who fears the Lord understands that the outside must be prepared before seeking internal comfort. You want a blessed home? Then begin with diligence in your craft, in your duty, in the responsibility God has entrusted you with. Only then build what will be seen. Now let's turn back a few pages to Proverbs chapter 16, verses 20 through 24. There it is written, "Whoever gives heed to instruction prospers, and blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord." Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Can you see the link between instruction, prosperity, and health? The wise man listens to counsel, and because of that, he prospers. Not because of luck, but because he follows principles. And his words, they are also fruit of his wisdom. They heal, they edify, they open doors. Yes, because a word spoken with fear and clarity is more valuable than many coins. Let's move now to Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 7 to 10. There I wrote, "Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. However many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. But remember, everything that comes is vanity. Rejoice, young man, in your youth. But know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment." These words are for those who still have time to change, to realign, to sow what may yet bear fruit. Time is a gift, but also a test. How you use your days reveals what you truly value. Let me read now from Song of Songs, chapter 3, verses 6 to 11. There I described the palanquin, the royal carriage prepared to carry the king, all built from the wood of Lebanon, adorned with silver, gold, and purple, and its interior lined with love. This image represents a solid project, a construction made with excellence, not just for appearances, but for structure. Man who fears the Lord invests in what has true foundations, not in the shine of the surface, but in the solidity that endures the weight of the journey. And finally, let me lead you to the words of Moses, Psalm 90, verses 12 to 17. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. May the favor of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. This is a deep cry, because wisdom begins with an understanding of brevity. And the blessing is to see our labor secured by God's hand. It's not enough to work. His hand must be over what we are building. Now that the word has instructed us, let's talk about something that destroys many investments: haste, the desire to get rich quickly, the anxiety of reaping before you have sown. This is a trap. There is a myth that investing is a shortcut, but the truth is, investing is agriculture. It's sowing today to reap tomorrow. It's repeating the process. It's watering even when nothing appears on the surface. It's trusting what's still invisible. Wise man, create your personal investment policy. Write your rules. Decide how much you will contribute, how you will diversify, and when you will review. Automate your contributions. Avoid emotional seasonality, that impulse to join when everyone else is excited, and to abandon ship when fear shows up. And do not neglect your home. Your family must be aligned with your plans, because even the most solid investment can be sabotaged by internal conflict. Align expectations. Speak with your wife. Explain your goals. Form together a long-term covenant, because there is no lasting prosperity where there is division. And now, let me give you 3 biblical codes of sowing that you must guard. First, consistency. Better a little, and always, than a lot, and rarely. Don't despise small contributions. They build deep roots. Second, diversification. In Ecclesiastes I wrote, "Divide your portion with 7 or even with 8, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land." In other words, don't put everything in one basket, because the wise man knows not everything is in his hands. Third, purpose. Wealth is not the goal, it is a tool. It must serve your calling, sustain your relationships, finance your mission, and glorify the name of God. If you are truly understanding what I'm saying, then you've already begun to invest rightly, because the first investment is understanding. And that's what sets the wise man apart from the fool. The vision beyond now, the courage to plant, even with no guarantees. Because he knows he who sows with faith will reap with honor. Processes and prudence in execution. Very well, God-fearing man. Now that you have understood the codes of sowing, it is time to speak about executing with prudence, because good intentions are not enough. There must be a process. Starting with euphoria is not enough. You must sustain it with strategy. Let us now open to Proverbs, chapter 12, verses 11 to 12 and 16 to 19. He who works his land will have abundant food, but he who chases fantasies lacks judgment. Truth stands the test of time, but a hasty tongue leads to confusion and ruin. What I am teaching here is that provision comes from faithful work, from consistent effort, not from shortcuts, not from illusions. Farming requires discipline, and haste, when paired with recklessness, destroys even the best of plans. The wise man holds his tongue, he observes, and speaks at the right time, because his words build, they do not wound. Let me now jump to Proverbs chapter 11, verses 13 to 16 and 18 to 21. He who sows righteousness reaps a sure reward. Integrity guides the upright, and generosity takes root. But the wicked, though they may prosper for a time, will be uprooted. Listen carefully. Integrity is protection, and reputation is a shield. Justice, when sown sincerely, returns as a bountiful harvest. And favor, God-fearing man cannot be bought. It is drawn by uprightness. Let us now read Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verses 10 to 12. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but wisdom brings success. The words of the wise are gracious, but the lips of a fool consume him. What I meant is simple. Sharpening the axe means preparing your mind, your spirit, and your skills. Before applying force, prepare yourself. Study, learn, train, because effort without direction is waste, and the right words, spoken with wisdom, are like keys that open locked doors. Now let us go to Song of Songs, chapter 2, verses 10 to 13. There I wrote, "Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away, for the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, flowers appear on the earth, the season of singing has come." This is a metaphor for discernment, for understanding seasons. The wise man perceives when it is time to sow, to reap, to rest, and most importantly, when it is time to wait, because not every soil is ready, and not every time is time to act. And finally, let us return to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verses 5 to 10, where Moses taught, "As a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. Observe the commandments, walk in his ways, for he is bringing you into a good land and with streams, fruit, and abundance. The discipline of the Lord is love, and gratitude in abundance is a sign of wisdom. The God-fearing man never forgets that everything he has came from the hands of the Most High. Now, wise man, I want to give you a checklist, a practical map for investing with wisdom. Start with competence. Study the field before investing. Whether it is a business, a career, or a new project, know before you commit. Then protect what you have built. Have an emergency fund, essential insurances, and clear boundaries so as not to overexpose yourself, because even the best harvests face storms. And finally, have personal governance. Set quarterly goals. Define loss limits. Establish a monthly review routine, and if possible, have someone to whom you are accountable. Someone who helps you stay on course. Now I want to tell you a parable. The parable of the barn and the seed. Imagine a barn full of grain. But the man who owns it, instead of saving some for the next planting season, spends it all on parties, on banquets, on vanity. When the next season arrives, he has no seeds left and nothing to plant. What I mean is, wisdom lies in saving before spending, in investing before celebrating. It's in prioritizing tomorrow before giving in to today's desires. God-fearing man. Define your savings rate. Create a contribution calendar, and only allow yourself a reward after hitting a milestone. Because celebrating is not wrong, but it is unwise to make the party the beginning rather than the result. And remember, the barn that fills up is the one that first saves, then invests, and then celebrates with honor. Treasures beyond material, knowledge, habits, health, and love. If you've come this far, it's because something inside you longs to grow, not just in possessions, but in being. Because the man who fears God understands that there is no true prosperity without inner structure, and there is no inner structure without well-cultivated wisdom, habits, health, and love. Let's now turn to Proverbs, chapter 4, verses 5 to 9. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. Esteem her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. She will set a garland of grace on your head and present you with a crown of splendor. What I meant here is that wisdom is an invisible inheritance, but it upholds everything visible. It protects, elevates, honors, and the crown it gives is not made of gold, but of discernment, of stability, of favor. Now I'll open Proverbs chapter 18, verses 13 to 16. To answer before listening, that is folly and shame. The human spirit can endure in sickness, but a crushed spirit who can bear? The heart of the discerning acquires knowledge, for the ears of the wise seek it out. A gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great. Wise man. See what this means. Listening is more precious than speaking. Knowing is more powerful than merely appearing. And gifts, when well stewarded, are like keys that open doors effort alone could never reach. Now let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 9 to 14. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The words of the wise are like goads, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails, given by one shepherd. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Man who fears God, understand this. The right words are like sturdy tools. They pierce the soul with precision. They guide. They transform. But everything starts with fear. Fear that aligns our life. Fear that shields against pride. Fear that reminds us we are not the center, but servants of an eternal King. Now I want to take you to a garden. Let's read Song of Songs, chapter 7, verses 10 to 13. I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. What I described here is the beauty of intentional bonding, of cultivated love, of encounters nurtured by time, presence, and joy. The man who fears God knows love is a treasure, but it requires care. Abandoned gardens lose their fragrance, but well-tended ones exude the aroma of peace. And finally, My father David wrote in Psalm 128, verses 1 to 6, "Blessed are all who fear the Lord, who walk in obedience to him. You will eat the fruit of your labor. Blessings and prosperity will be yours. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house. Your children will be like olive shoots around your table." Yes, this will be the blessing for the man who fears the Lord. This is the image of a well-built life, a house where harmony dwells, a table with bread, a home where work is celebrated, and love blossoms without haste. Now, let me tell you a truth many avoid, a truth few have the courage to hear. Wealth without inner structure crumbles. The wise man knows that material possessions are fragile. If the mind is anxious, if the body is weak, if the spirit is scattered, everything acquired will be eroded by neglect. That's why the invisible foundation sustains the greatest treasures: restorative sleep, balanced nutrition, constant prayer, ongoing study. These are invisible walls, but they hold up life's palaces. Map out a learning plan, set yearly paths, finances, craft, scripture. Keep records. Have a mentor, because growth is not accidental, it is intentional. And above all, master your communication. Listen more. Speak with wisdom. Choose your words like precious stones, because a good name is worth more than many riches. And a right word spoken at the right time prevents war and builds bridges. But there's a danger, and I must warn you. It's the small foxes within. They seem harmless, but they destroy entire vineyards. Vanity, comparison, haste are cracks that weaken decisions and steer a man away from the path of wisdom. To combat them, there are simple but powerful remedies: rhythms of rest, simplicity in choices, digital boundaries, planned spending fasts, because the man who fears God knows that soul mastery begins with small denials. And how do you measure progress? Presence at home, focus at work, less anxiety for external validation. These are clear signs you are storing up invisible treasures that no thief can steal and no crisis can corrode. Let wisdom become a lifestyle. Let us continue this journey. And now I want to guide you down a path where wisdom stops being merely theory and becomes living practice, concrete decision, harvest of lasting fruit. Let us open to Proverbs chapter 9, verses 9 to 12. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a man of understanding, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years of life will be added to you. If you are wise for yourself. What I meant here, wise man, is that true wisdom never stagnates. It grows, it multiplies, it lengthens your days, not by magic, but because better decisions lead to better consequences. And the more you learn, the more prepared you are to sustain what you've achieved. Now I'll open to Proverbs chapter 19, verses 20 to 23. Listen to counsel and receive instruction, that you may be wise in your latter days. There are many plans in a man's heart, nevertheless the Lord's counsel that will stand. The fear of the Lord leads to life, and he who has it will abide in satisfaction. He will not be visited with evil. Take note, not every plan is wise, but every plan born from the fear of the Lord finds direction and peace. The God-fearing man learns to listen before acting, and knows that peace is not the absence of challenges. It is alignment with eternal purpose. Returning now to Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verses 10 to 12. Remember the axe. If the axe is dull, and one does not sharpen the edge, then he must use more strength, but wisdom brings success. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool shall swallow him up. Apply this, and sharpen your tools. Refine your body, your mind, and your spirit before demanding results, because without preparation, even blessings become burdens, and what was meant to be harvest turns into frustration. Now let us go to Song of Songs, chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine with my milk. I slept, but my heart was awake. This poetry. God-fearing man reveals that even love needs order and care, celebration with responsibility, presence with attentiveness. It is possible to have abundance and still keep watch over the heart. And to close, I return with you to Psalm 90 from Moses, verses 12 to 17. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Make us glad according to the days in which you have afflicted us. Let your work appear to your servants and your glory to their children. Let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Wise man, number your days, not to rush, but to apply your heart to what truly matters, and ask the Lord to establish the work, because it is not enough to plant. He must bless the soil. Now I want to give you a practical plan, a plan of 4 invisible treasures, 4 pillars for a life that grows in all directions. First, knowledge. Set aside at least 2 hours per week for intentional study. Take notes, summarize, apply, study the scriptures, and also the craft God entrusted to you. Because a wise man is one who keeps learning. Second, habits and health. The 4 daily pillars: sleep, prayer, movement, and nutrition. Without these, even the most beautiful plans fall apart, because the body is the structure that sustains the spirit on the journey. Third, relationships. 1 intentional meeting per week. With your spouse, a child, a friend, a mentor. Not just coexistence, but communion. Connections that heal, strengthen, and inspire. And lastly, the mission. Choose 1 practical action per month. An act of generosity, a mentorship, a service at church. Because prosperity without purpose is empty. But when we share what we have, we multiply who we are. And how do you know it's working? Watch for the signs. Slower but better decisions. Fewer regrets. More energy in the morning. Greater clarity when deciding. Lighter relationships. Conflicts resolved with gentleness. Joy in being home. Joy in becoming who you are. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Present to God 1 wasteful habit you've decided to abandon, and 1 invisible treasure you've chosen to cultivate. Write in the comments what your first practical step will be this week, and pray for another man who also left his request there. Because the God-fearing man intercedes, builds, and walks in fellowship. The weight of treasure and the peace of those who know how to guard. What I showed you today, wise man, was not just about money. It was about the spirit with which you handle everything God has entrusted to you. Because the foolish live like an open channel. Everything that comes in goes out. Nothing is kept, nothing is cultivated, nothing remains. But the God-fearing man becomes like a deep cistern. He retains, purifies, multiplies. Do you see it now? Accumulating treasures is not an obsession with wealth. It is a reverence for what has value. It is about guarding what matters before it is lost in the flow of life. The foolish scatter. They scatter time, money, energy, affection, words. They sleep late, wake up late, talk too much, listen too little. They buy on impulse, quit halfway, chase after approval, and end up exhausted, empty, lost. But the wise man knows where he steps. He watches his thoughts, controls his impulses, establishes priorities, builds reserves, nurtures relationships, and guards the commandments. He accumulates treasures, material, yes, but also invisible. He accumulates knowledge that sets free, habits that sustain, relationships that strengthen, love that overflows. This is the threefold prosperity of the God-fearing man. In practice, he manages with diligence, retains with purpose, invests with vision, and protects with responsibility. In spirit, he walks with meaning, serves with gratitude, and knows that wealth has limits but purpose is eternal. In relationships, he cultivates like one tending a garden, watering with patience, pruning with wisdom, blooming with truth. I tell you, guard what God has entrusted to you, multiply with diligence, and share with wisdom. Thus your house will have bread, it will have peace, and it will have an honored name. Now, define a concrete step, Decide today what your savings rate will be. Choose which invisible habit you will cultivate with seriousness. And share this video with a brother who also wants to grow as a God-fearing man. This is a brotherhood of men who build on the rock, men who prosper with purpose, men who do not sell themselves nor get lost. Stay with me for the next pieces of advice, because the journey of wisdom has no shortcuts, but it has a guaranteed harvest for those who persevere to the end.